Before we get into the show properly, it's time for Patreon shoutout. Thank you to Beth for joining at the Ravens tier. If you would like to join our patrons, go to patreon.com/drearymidnight. And with that, on with the show.
Good evening and welcome to the Dreary Midnight Podcast. My name is Lisa. My pronouns are she, they.
My name is Celeste. My pronouns are she, her.
And tonight we are joined by a very special guest.
Hello, my name is Alex. I've been on this podcast before, talk about exciting death things at Mount Holyoke, and I'm super excited to be here again.
Hooray! So this is a double record with Alex. Alex will have one topic, Celeste will have another topic.
Yeah.
Because we are pre-recording because it is peak season. Mm-hmm. So today is the Celeste-led episode. So what do you got for us?
For me, we are going to do Superstitions Part 3.
Ooh. Ooh. Let's get into it. Intro music.
Intro music. Okay, well, we've done Superstitions Part 1 and 2. These are one of my favorite episodes to do, honestly, because it's really fun. Yeah. It's like quick shots, and it's really fun hearing all the different ways that superstitions come about. Yeah. So, listen to the previous two if you haven't, or you can just start because I'm not going to do any repeats. And this first superstition that we're going to go over is stepping on cracks.
Okay. And break your mother's back.
Yeah.
I've always heard.
One of the great terrors of childhood.
Yes. Do you guys know or want to guess how this started?
Well, here, I'm actually curious. So I figure, it feels like on every playground the rhyme is a little different. So why don't we all say, like, what the rhyme is that we know?
So I only knew step on a crack, break your mother's back.
Okay, see, I heard step on a crack, break your mother's back, step on a line, break your father's spine.
I've heard both of those.
I heard mother's spine.
Okay.
You've heard mother's spine?
I think they're both horrifying.
Yes.
I did not mess around with that as a kid.
Did you ever step on a crack? Not to see if it would happen.
I mean, I've probably
But, like, did you ever step on it and you were like, oh, fuck, my mom!
I feel like I have, yeah.
I mean, I've had that instance of panic when I was about 7,
Yeah.
But
it's such a freaky thing, especially when you're a kid. That's
exactly.
such a terrifying concept. I definitely, when I was a kid, I was never a super, like, intensely superstitious child, but I had heard that, and the concept did weird me out a little, and when I was consciously thinking about it, I was like, I should probably avoid the cracks in the lines just for safety's sake.
Yes.
It's like, I like my parents. I'd really rather that they, don't befall superstitious tragedy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just in the event it is true. Like
it was like the very first version of the copy pasta things.
Yes.
Where it's like, if you don't forward this to 20 people, then, you'll have bad luck for years. Yeah. So, according to one source, so there's a couple sources that I drew from. According to one of these sources, the superstition originates from African and European folklore, where it was believed that cracks in the earth, whether man-made or natural, were portals to the supernatural realm. So,
and somehow something would come through and harm your parents?
If you step on it or interact with the crack in any way, and this wasn't just, like, sidewalk, it was like soil and walls and like basically anywhere there's a crack.
Well, if it's soil, that makes much more sense that it would read as supernatural, because here's just this random gap in the earth.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Like sinkholes, tectonic movement, that type of thing.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my gosh, a sinkhole. This is like a bit of a sidetrack, but I remember a sinkhole opened up in the driveway of my grandparents' place in Tucson, Arizona. And Arizona doesn't get sinkholes. It's because there used to be a house there. They'd filled in, like, the contractor had filled in the pool that used to be there, but didn't fill it in correctly. So everybody was totally okay. But there was somebody who was, like, driving in to, like, I don't know, fix my grandparents' like dishwasher or something. And he drove over it. It opened up, and nothing crazy happened, but it basically opened up a perfect hole like 8 feet deep in their driveway, and just the back tire of his like Kia went down in, so he had to wait to like get a tow truck. Anyway,
he stepped on the crack.
Follow-up question, how's his mother's spine doing?
I know, right?
So these gaps, no matter how narrow, they were seen as boundaries between the earthly realm and the metaphysical realm. So interacting with them, no matter how small they were, could bring misfortune to you or your family, because it could release spirits, release or invite unwelcome spirits that may do harm upon the individual who did it or their family members. So hence why that.
Yeah.
But why your mother's back? I don't know for sure, but the line "break your mother's back" and then the less popular version, "step on a line, break your father's spine," were well known in like nursery rhymes. Before we get into that, a lot of times, like with children, they will take it literally, but with adults, it's more like less that they're thinking they're actually going to break their mom's spine or back or whatever, and more that it's just kind of a waiting for the other shoe to drop sort of thing.
Okay.
So because if you believe in the superstition, then you do this, and now you just have that anticipation that something is going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's more like the vague threat of ill fortune brought on by negative magic, which is usually like a tit-for-tat scenario. But there are a few children's books that referenced the breaking your mother's back thing. These were both within like the last century. So some people say this is like a fairly recent superstition, but I don't know if it was actually recent or if it's just that it was written down recently. Yeah. So Miss Mary Mac and other children's street rhymes.
Like Miss Mary Mac, black.
Yes. Has the version: step on a crack, break your mother's back. Step on a line, break your mother's spine. Step in a hole, break your mother's sugar bowl. Step in a ditch, your mother's knows which.
I definitely never heard that version.
Yeah, same.
Like mine was like, it's the I forget what it is.
Black.
Well, it's the book is called Miss Mary Mac. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
The book is like a compilation of children's street rhymes, including Miss Mary Mac. But one of the street rhymes is the step on your crack because Miss Mac. Step on your lines, stick your in the spine.
Yeah. So it's not like verse 3 of Mary Mac. It's a different thing.
Yeah. But this was, I think it was a probably like a jump roping game.
Yeah.
Like the way that the rhythm of it and everything, or hopscotch.
Yeah,
it was either jump rope or hopscotch.
But you said step on a something, break your mother's sugar bowl.
Step in a hole, break your mother's sugar bowl. Step in a ditch, your mother's nose will itch.
So sugar bowl doesn't scan as well as break your mother's soul does, which makes makes me a little bit doubt where my mind is going. But
that was too loud. I'm sorry. Step in a ditch, your mother's knows which seems like the least jarring of all of them.
I can live with that. Yeah, she'll be fine.
If she notices, you can just scratch or blow it, it's fine.
Exactly. And then there's a book that references it. It's a poem that I hold dear to my heart, and this is the poem "Lines and Squares" from A. Milne's when we were very young, which was published in 1924. So I'm guessing you guys don't know who A.A. Milne is.
I don't think so.
I was an English major, so I heard the name.
A.A. Milne, for anyone who doesn't know, is famous for writing the Winnie the Pooh series.
Yes, that's what it was.
And I loved Winnie the Pooh when I was a child. That was like my shit. So I have a book of his poems because he also was famous for writing poems about his son Christopher Milne, a.k.a. Christopher Robin. So in this poem, the narrator, soon to be Christopher Robin, says, so this is a different version. This isn't break your mother's back, but this is another consequence.
Okay.
Whenever I walk in a London street, I'm ever so careful to watch my feet. and I keep to the squares and the masses of bears who wait who wait at the corners all ready to eat, the sillies who tread on the lines of the street. Go back to their lairs, and I say to them, bears, just look how I'm walking in all the squares. And the little bears growl to each other, he's mine, as soon as he's silly and steps on a line. And some of the bigger bears try to pretend that they came around the corner to look for a friend, and they try to pretend that nobody cares whether you walk on the lines or squares. But only the sillies believe their talk. It's ever so important how you walk, and it's ever so jolly to call out, bears, just watch me walking in all of the squares. Which is so cute.
Yeah.
But also reinforcing the idea that no matter what you think will happen, something bad will happen if you step on a crack. The bear will eat you.
This conversation about, not stepping on the lines and the cracks and the squares and all
makes
that.
you really want to step on
Well,
a crack.
no, it makes me think that our walk to the restaurant for lunch after this is going to take 1,000,000 years.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Because we have like the
brick.
diagonal brick situation.
No.
Someone's gonna die.
Oh, no.
Well, maybe all the bad luck in the world is just because of people stepping on cracks.
Yeah.
Now,
Butterfly effect and whatever. Yeah.
our second superstition is a rabbit's foot.
For good luck.
Yes.
Okay.
So what do you guys know about that?
Oh, I know the rabbit's foot. So, I'm from Tucson, Arizona, and when I was growing up, the woman who used to babysit me, she was really, really lovely. She babysit me and my sister, and we would often hang out with her, at the time, her fiance, and they were married later, and we went to their wedding, and, like, his kids. Mm-hmm. And he ran a cowboy hat shop in Tucson.
Mm-hmm. That seems very specifically Tucson and Nashville.
It's very Tucson.
Had a market for it.
And I remember he gave my sister a purple cowgirl hat and me a pink cowgirl hat, which is really sweet. But I remember the shop also sold rabbit's feet, and they were, real, actual rabbit's feet on a keychain.
Yep.
And I didn't love that. That always weirded me out a little. It really weirded my sister out because she loved rabbits. But I know you carry it, it's good luck, and I guess I've always thought of it as a kind of like Western American thing, although I guess you're going to maybe tell us a little about the origins.
Because I've only ever seen like people occasionally hang like a bit of metal that has a tuft of some kind of fur as like hanging on their rear view window or something.
Like real or not.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like a foot, so I was always kind of confused. But like they always called that a rabbit's foot.
Yeah, no, the ones that I saw were real. The ones I saw in Tucson, that was a rabbit's foot.
Yeah.
So, a rabbit's foot being good luck. I'm going to say content warning for animal cruelty and violence.
Oh,
obviously.
All right. We'll leave we'll do the content warning music right now.
The practice of cutting off the feet of rabbits and hares existed since at least ancient Roman times. In 77 AD, Pliny the Elder claimed that carrying around a hare's foot cut off from the animal alive could cure gout. Poor rabbit.
I feel like that tracks for Rome and Pliny in particular. I don't know much about Pliny, but what I know about him, that tracks.
In the 16th through 19th centuries, Europeans carried hand-cut paws from hares, rabbits, and even moles to protect against various ailments, including cramps, rheumatism, and toothaches.
So, like, is it cut out of a wood that just happens to, like... Is it cut out of wood and it's... and surprise, it turns out there's salicylic acid there and that's pain reliever? Or is it like an actual... Somebody took their hand and cut it off of a... Cut the foot off.
Cut out of wood, did you say?
Well, because you said hand cut. And so...
Hands...
Okay,
cut off the limbs of the little rabbits.
But to be fair, like I will say, in many places in the world, still, in the U.S. today, and certainly at that time, it was more common to eat rabbits. So,
so you're gonna take their little feet off anyway.
That's not so shocking to me. Like in the context of you're already eating the animal, it is not a thing I like in the context of you're not eating the animal.
Exactly.
If it's at a time and place in history where you really have to maximize using every part of an animal for something, then I guess let's see if a hare's foot will have salicylic acid.
Well, that's
I don't know.
thing. What I was thinking is that it's less about, because they have them in little charms, right? It's not about like putting it on the ailment. It's more they think because of magic, it's going to cure you somehow. Like a lot of those kind of what's it called? Like medicines.
Placebos?
Yeah, it's like a placebo.
Yeah. Question that I probably should know the answer to, but don't. Do any Roman healing gods have connections to rabbits?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Wait, hold my mic.
We need the Dolores.
I just know that
book.
in that Irish folklore book that I have, they have a lot of little cures that do not make any sense. It's like, oh, carry around a tooth in your pocket and you'll
always have a spare tooth.
It has not, and it usually
that would make sense.
You can pop it in if one of them falls out.
I have a dictionary of classical mythology, and that's what I was trying to look up. But... So, according to the briefest of web searches, Hermes, the Greek god of spoken word, among other things, and the messenger god was, the rabbits were sacred to Hermes, and Hecate, goddess of magic, also had some associations with rabbits as well.
I was looking up the god of healing, and it seems to be Asclepius.
Asclepius.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
yeah.
he's mostly about snakes, it seems.
Well, Asclepius was one of the major healing deities, and
like the snakes cleaned his ears because they were so grateful to him.
I think so, but a symbol of Hermes eventually. An eventual symbol of Hermes is, I think, connected to Asclepius. If you've seen the little twisty snake things, and at the top, that one snake goes left, one snake goes right. It's like a Y, but made out of snakes.
Yes.
You have Blue Cross Blue Shield. Now is a good time to take your insurance card out and look at it. That's what we're talking about.
That's the thing.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, that's a fun little tangent.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's interesting to me though that it seems to have like Greco-Roman origins, because again, like in my mind, and again, this is probably just like related to the context in which I encountered it and where I grew up and where I saw those things, but I always thought of it as like a Western American thing, and kind of connected to maybe some of our other lore around rabbits and hares in the Western United States, because of course there's the other one, which is the jackalope. And I mean, as a child, look, as a child in rural Arizona, I totally thought jackalopes were like a real thing. We had jackrabbits everywhere. Yeah. We also had like the smaller cottontail rabbits. But I was like, yeah, jackalope, that checks out completely.
Well, when you're a kid, you kind of believe, like, why wouldn't it be real?
Yeah, and even the ranch next door to where I grew up, they had a jackalope head mounted on the wall as if it had been hunted. And of course, now as an adult, I recognize, okay, it's a jackrabbit taxidermy, and then they stuck deer antlers on it. But as a child, I was like, well, there you go.
It is.
Jackalope.
That's proof.
Checks out.
Yeah. It's like the same thing of how people believed in the mermaid by putting like the monkey and the fish together.
Yes.
Well, so following along the article that I just found about hares and stuff, there are a lot of trickster legends in Algonquian, Fox, Menominee, Ottawa, Ojibwa, and Winnebago tribes. Manabozho, or the Great Hare, is a powerful figure in those legends, and is the creator of Earth, benefactor of humankind, bringer of light and fire, teacher of sacred rituals. Sometimes he is a clown, a thief, a lecher, or a cunning predator.
That's a busy animal.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. But in Potawatomi myth, Wabasso is the great white hare and Nanazbazho's brother, and becomes a magician.
Ooh.
So,
there's
rabbits
and magic.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I feel like if this is like what you're reading now is traditional Native American mythology, that's kind of interesting about like the connection of the rabbit to what I guess they're calling a magician. I don't know so much about that, but that's so interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those, because I think iterations of the rabbit family show up all over the world. There's going to be iterations of a rabbit legend. But yeah, so that was from terrywendling.com. We'll include that in the show notes.
That's interesting. It never said anything about, how it would have been in the Western world. It only said how Europe brought it over to America. Yeah. So this version, anyway, is that it was imported to America. There, the rabbit's foot came to encompass a variety of Anglo-American and African-American superstitions. According to folklore researcher, and what is this, Professor Emeritus at Pennsylvania State University?
Professor Emeritus means he still occasionally works with them, but he's not actively on the payroll.
Got it. Thank you.
To my knowledge.
Okay.
If you know any different or know better, email us at drearyminutepodcast@gmail.com.
Well, either way, this guy, Bill Ellis, says, quote, possessing a fetish that embodies the essence of a dangerous other, whether trickster, badman, or witch, and using it for one's own purposes effectively neutralizes the threat represented by that other. In short, we do unto others as they would do unto us, and that is why a lucky rabbit's foot is lucky. End quote. So basically, the more unlucky the rabbit was at the time of its death, the more luck that the rabbit's foot would be, because the rabbit's foot is a counterculture talisman able to take the worst kinds of evil and subvert them by its very existence.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Cool. I like that.
Okay, do you guys remember, and I'm thinking I'm remembering this episode correctly. You guys watched, like, Supernatural growing up, right?
No.
Yes.
Oh, come on.
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to watch it, only
That's
watch
like,
the first...
I feel like you
only
would,
what
yeah.
I know. I
first
feel like
seasons.
definitely
Yeah.
exactly.
Watch the first
five
seasons.
seasons and then stop.
It was like little, like middle school, early high school. Me loved that show. It was so fun, and I mean, I didn't finish it because again, like it kind of went a little off the rails.
You're aging yourself because I was in college when I watched it.
But
I just remember there being discourse about the shipping and almost admitting that it's a gay ship, but it was like 2012, so they couldn't or something.
Oh, Lisa, you are
so
the discourse of Supernatural. Like I cannot even be explained.
Death
like
doesn't matter in
like,
that show.
Find a show with more discourse.
Find a show with more queer baiting.
There's so much.
And then
in
the
that
kill
show.
your gays.
A lot happened in that show. So much happened in that show. But anyway, the thing I'm thinking of is there's an episode, Lisa, maybe you remember this, where I think it is a rabbit's foot, or maybe it's a monkey's paw or something. I could
Hi, I'm Celeste, not Lisa.
Oh, sorry. I'm making direct eye contact with you, like Lisa. Celeste, sorry. Do you remember the episode where there is that... there's a woman, I'm not remembering her name, she shows up every now and then in like the mid seasons from, I don't know, I'm thinking like 3 to 5 maybe, and they are all kind of fighting over this rabbit's foot, but every time you are in possession of it, you have the best luck in the world, absolutely anything is possible, but the second it goes out of your hand, boom, it's gone, and you
luck.
Like you're having the worst luck possible. That's where there was that line that everybody memed to death where it was like, I lost my shoe. It's that the lost shoe was a result of that. But anyway, and I remember in the end of that episode, the only way that you could stop this cycle of like amazing luck if you're holding it, but terrible like life-threatening luck if you've lost it, is if you just burn the thing. So I wonder, like, is there anything about how to destroy a rabbit's foot if it's giving you...
No, because a rabbit's foot is probably going to give you some luck, but not like that amount.
Oh, okay.
I think it was that...
So maybe
that
was
just
an
for
invention
flavor.
Of the show.
Exactly.
But it's kind of interesting you were talking about, like, it can sort of transmit the bad luck of the rabbit to the good luck of the person. That's what made me think about that transfer of bad luck to good luck, almost based on who's possessing the paw in a way.
Yeah. I think it's more like once the rabbit is dead and you have cut the foot off, like everything that happened to that rabbit or how, okay, because we'll get into that. So this is in 1925, sociologist Niles Newbell Puckett observed, quote, in New Orleans, these rabbit foot charms mounted in silver or gold are conspicuously displayed in the windows of prominent jewelry shops up and down Canal Street. The managers of these stores assure me that the sales are enormous. The one I purchased had with it a printed slip containing a graphic illustration of the rabbit in the act of being shot and the following inscription. This little lucky is the left hind foot of a graveyard rabbit killed in the full of the moon. End quote. Okay. So you basically make sure that you're putting as much bad luck on this rabbit to make sure, not like in a necessarily gruesome way, like they're shooting him, but it's more like the grave that the rabbit is killed on, the fact that it's a Friday 13th, the fact that it's a full moon.
Oh, yeah.
So they'll just make sure that it's like put all this bad luck charm.
They're trying to like stack things to advertise that this is going to be the luckiest purchase of your life.
Yes. And apparently former President Grover Cleveland received a foot taken from a rabbit that was killed on the grave of Jesse James because the more wicked the person who is dead, the more effective the charms associated with his remains.
Oh.
Right.
I mean, somehow that tracks if you're doing the inverse logic thing.
Exactly. Also, the left hind foot was the luckiest. The Latin word for left is sinister.
Yep.
Yeah, that tracks.
Because if you're doing passion plays in ancient Rome, you go to the heavens on the right and hell or equivalent on the left, and then that's how we get sinister and all of the bad associations therein. If I had been born about 20 years earlier, I would have been forced to learn to write with my opposite hand because I'm a lefty.
That's why people don't like lefties.
Yeah,
my mom's a lefty, but I think, I mean, it wasn't like horribly forced to use her right hand, but definitely like she learned to do a lot of things with her right hand. In fact, I was so excited because for Christmas she asked what she wanted a pair of like nice scissors to give herself haircuts at home. So I went out and I bought her 2 pairs of like, one was like the thinning scissors that kind of looked like a comb, and the other was just a regular hair cutting scissors. And I got specifically left-handed scissors.
Aww.
Yeah. So when I presented them to her at Christmas, my dad, he was particularly excited. He was like, "Look, she got you left-handed scissors. Isn't that awesome?" And my mom is so nice. Like, she's the nicest person on the planet. She was like, "That is so sweet of you. Thank you so much. I don't know how to use left-handed scissors because I've always only ever used right-handed scissors."
Yeah.
So fortunately, I just swapped them out at the store. It was no big deal, but it was really funny, and it was just interesting that, she'd learned only to do right-handed things.
Yeah. Oh my god. Fun fact about childcare. When you hand a kid something, you never hand it to one of their hands. You hand it to right in the middle so that they can choose which hand is the prominent hand.
Oh, that's so interesting. I never thought about that.
So when you hand them like a marker or something, you hand it right to the middle. You don't hand it to the left or the right side. And
So
then
you
whatever
aim for
they're
their-
more comfortable
yeah.
with, that's what they're going to grab it with.
So aim for like the nose or the belly button or something, and then they'll reach up, whichever. That's cool.
And that's
Never
how you
realized that.
figure it, because they'll figure out what their prominent hand
Yeah.
is. So, yeah. Left hind foot was the luckiest. Better still was the left hind foot of a rabbit killed in a cemetery at midnight on a rainy Friday or Friday the 13th. Like I said.
Okay.
In both European and African traditions, body parts like hair and bones took on powerful symbolism. Europeans believed witches could transform into animals, including rabbits. So, the vavitch. So, a rabbit's foot could represent a dead witch. Also, I just realized I said vavitch because that's me and James's inside joke on. Do you remember the 2015 Egerton
was
film,
so good.
The
Yes, I
Witch?
love that movie.
But
I
the way
haven't
that
seen
it's
it.
spelled,
It's good.
you should watch it. We should watch it. It's so good.
Yeah.
Patreon cast.
But the way, because it's in Old English, like the title, so it's the 2 V's to make up the W. It's called The Witch, but James and I always read it as the Vavitch.
So I assume there's a thorn in there somewhere,
It's
and
very.
you said Old English, and here I am being like, it's Beowulf, so
It's
use
not
thorns
like that.
and whatever.
Okay, sorry.
It's like
It's
very
in
early
colonial English.
American English.
So early
It's
modern English.
Very, very accurate though to colonial modern English,
Well-
to the point that it almost seems incomprehensible if you have to kind of have subtitles.
Well, what
a
they
little bit.
said, what I heard about the production of the movie, this might have even been said like somewhere in the credits of the movie, or maybe I just looked up the movie and found this, but almost all of the lines, the speaking lines of the characters, they're all written almost word for word from dialogue that was found in old court records. And that's what I spend a lot of my day job doing,
Yeah.
is looking through Yielden court records
records.
and tax records and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
everybody
it's-
just remember, now that you all just did your taxes by the time that this podcast is out, someday in 200 years, some genealogist will be looking at that.
I really love that director. He does a lot of really good movies, and he puts a lot of effort into making sure that his movies are as accurate as they are to the time period that he's working with.
I love that. So
Yeah.
I'm currently looking up if it is on my brand new tablet.
It's so scary though.
Never mind.
It's like suspenseful. It doesn't show.
It
implies
does.
a lot.
Yeah, but there's a scene near the end. I won't spoil anything, but there is a scene near the end that gets awfully bloody.
It's scary. It's okay. It's not like
It's really good though.
I would say it's scary in the suspense and like it's uncomfortable, but I wouldn't say it's like a slasher film or something.
No. Yeah, it's not a slasher film or anything like that. It's very much like about isolation.
I don't like
and
gore,
open
but
air.
I love that movie.
I agree. Me
Yeah.
too.
Speaking of
This
gore,
is now a witch review podcast.
I know. No, I love The Witch.
It's so good.
It's so good. Oh, it was also the first time I saw Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yes, she's so good in that.
That one class that I took in college that I always talk about, which is the supernatural fiction, like supernatural stuff in literature, had us watch that movie. That was the first time I watched it, and I wrote like an entire research paper
Oh, that's awesome.
with it. So, speaking of gore, though. So, another European superstition is the hand of glory, a hand cut from the dead man and pickled, then turned into a candle.
How do you turn it into a candle?
Maybe you put wax around it?
Can I get that on Etsy?
Probably.
Thieves could, maybe like a recreation, hopefully not the actual thing. Thieves could light the hand of glory while committing crimes, preventing the people in the house from waking up. The graveyard rabbit's feet sold, also, I don't know if that would actually work, but the graveyard rabbit's feet sold in New Orleans likely stood in for the more dangerous and taboo practice of using human body parts as potent talisman. Replacing the rabbit's foot in a bag with dirt from a sinner's grave was another way to give the foot power. So it's basically just the thing that's saying maybe we're using a rabbit's foot because we don't want to use human body parts in our luck charms. So that's what I have for that. All right. So the next superstition we're going to talk about is fingers crossed.
Ooh.
So fingers crossed for good luck. Do you happen to know anything about why you think this might be a superstition?
The cross.
The cross.
I feel like I can do a few guesses, but okay. So for me, crossing fingers, I feel like there's crossing fingers for luck, but there's also crossing of fingers, like for a lie.
Yes.
Do you
Okay.
guys
So we'll
do
get
that?
both into
Yeah.
that.
Because is it like do one for lie and two for luck or
Oh,
something?
I've never heard of that.
I've never-
No, because the
recording
way
it.
I heard it is that like you cross once to negate the thing, and then cross twice to double cross the first one.
Oh, that's fun.
Or at least that's the logic that I thought when I was saying good luck and do.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay. So yes to the cross thing, and also yes to that. Well, we're going to get into that. So, crossing fingers, there's two versions of the origin, because some people say it originated with Christianity, but some people say that it dates to pre-Christianity belief in Western Europe, which is the powerful symbol of a cross, just a cross in general, not necessarily Jesus' cross. Pagans believe that intersections are places that have a concentration of good spirits and also act as anchors for good wishes and luck. So, if you wanted to wish someone good luck, you emphasize their good wish by crossing your fingers. So, two people would actually cross each other's fingers, their index finger over their other index finger.
like that.
Yeah, like perfect. They're doing that. don't lock fingers.
hang on.
You just make the cross.
Oh, I thought
Like
it was
that.
like trying to do.
No, you just make the cross.
This is like this at the moment is not good
No.
podcast content because they
Yeah.
can't see what I'm doing.
No,
but,
okay.
like,
So Alex,
interesting.
Lisa put out a finger, and then Alex put out a finger, and Lisa kept their finger straight, and Alex just looped her finger
So,
around
like-
Lisa's finger.
So trying to make the ASL for the letter R, except like, or crossing your fingers, except it's two different fingers.
Exactly. One belongs to Lisa, one belongs to Alex.
I think it's the letter R. Anyway.
So
It is,
yeah. So two people would usually cross each other's fingers after one of them made a wish. This eventually evolved into a one person crossing their own fingers on their own fingers. like the cross.
So, in fact, making the ASL for the letter R.
Yes. So, in the early days of Christianity, when Christians were persecuted for their beliefs, to recognize fellow Christians, people developed a series of hand gestures, one of which involved forming the fish symbol by touching thumbs and crossing index fingers. So, if you're not driving right now, then I recommend you put your two thumbs together and you cross your little index fingers together and you'll make a fish.
All right. Can we also, like, take a photo of someone's hands after this and put it on the Instagram?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Crossing their fingers to make the cross. Although I think they did it differently to make it look more like an actual cross instead of just looping their fingers. Cross their fingers to invoke the power associated with Christ's cross and to invoke protection when faced with evil. The cross formed with the fingers represented the true cross that Christ bore during Roman persecutions. Early Catholics would use a symbol to recognize each other and assemble mass. So they would use these symbols to assemble mass so that they could, have that without being detected.
Cool.
The origin of a single person crossing fingers is debated, though, because some say that it began with the church gatherings where everyone would hold up their cross fingers during assembly, and some people say that it really took off in like the 100 Years' War during the 14th and 15th century, because during intense battles, when soldiers needed God's favor, they would cross their fingers as a form of small prayer. And over time, the gesture became used for a general asking of God's favor and for luck. If crossing your fingers started as a small prayer to God, how did we come to also use it when lying? The exact reason why is a debated topic, but it's believed to have started in the early days of the church when persecuted Catholics had to lie about their beliefs or else face death since Catholicism was outlawed. Because, by the way, this little section is, I don't know if it was just Catholics, but Christians in general. Because the 9th commandment teaches us not to lie, early Catholics would make the gesture after lying about their faith in a way to ask God's forgiveness for their denial.
Okay, that makes sense.
Pass on that one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I lied. I just don't want to die.
Even as a kid, like when you're into all the superstitious stuff, like I was like, okay, crossing the fingers so you can lie, that's like a little much.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're just asking God for forgiveness, basically.
Right?
Okay.
And God's like, oh, well, I mean, you crossed your fingers, so...
Yeah.
So it's all good.
It was also like
Keep
a
going down
prayer.
there, King.
Yeah, and it was also like a prayer to God.
I mean, I grew up Methodist, so yeah, kind of, actually. Or at least that was the energy.
Yeah, well, exactly. Okay, so that's all I have on crossing fingers. And now, I saved this for last. This is the Scottish play.
Yep. Yeah.
So wait, I'll bet we all know really interesting, like, regional stuff about that, just because all of us were, like,
theater kids.
Theater dweebs.
Okay. So what I learned is that saying it's...
I will say the name during this, by the way. So we should just come out and say
content warning music. And
don't listen to this
tune
in
back
a theater.
in if you once the content music comes back again. So what I learned is that it's basically one of the very early runs had a very, like, there's really, really tumultuous, and theater folks are superstitious to begin with, so they decided, in sort of throwing it at the shit at the wall and seeing what sticks, is like, okay, leave all the ghost light, do all of these things, and don't say the name of the king unless it's part of your lines.
Yeah.
And when you say the king, do you mean specifically like Macbeth in this context, or just like whatever ruler?
Specifically specifically the name Macbeth. Sorry,
oh, okay.
I realized. No, I realized as you said that, it's like, oh yeah, there's technically King Duncan. I meant Macbeth.
See, I was almost wondering if it was like almost a don't take a powerful figure's name in vain thing.
Oh yeah,
that's why I asked.
And then
no, it's just Macbeth.
Yeah, it was. Well, even then, don't take Lord's name in vain or whatever is like, don't lie on the name of God or whatever. Going back to fingers crossed, but or don't make promises that you're not intending to keep and then say on God. But
oh God.
But
okay, go in for the slang.
Yeah, but that's what I had heard, is that like the very early runs were like terrible. What did you know?
So I didn't know much about like where exactly it originated, but what I was told is that you can say Macbeth as long as you're not in a theater. If you're in a theater as a member of like the cast, the crew, if you're there as a viewer, you don't say it. That's a no-no. And if you say it, then the show is going to have really bad luck. All this bad stuff is going to happen in the show, but there is a way to cure it, and that way to cure it is you have to go out and run around the theater 3 times. Oh, yeah. Now, maybe, I don't know if that was, like, present. Was that present at your, like, theaters where you have to run around 3 times and that's how you cure it?
Well, we didn't do the play.
Yeah. Well, so I had heard something adjacent is like run thrice in under a minute or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Like something terribly impossible.
Yes, okay, because I was just wondering if maybe our teacher was trying to get us to like exercise.
No, that's
and, like, listen, theater kids, you're not in any sports. Please just do some running. But okay, that might be legit actually. But yeah, that's what I was told.
So both of you are correct. Okay. Yeah, you passed. Here's your certificate. You are now theater nerds.
Oh my god, as if I didn't already have it. Okay.
I literally did get a theater nerd certificate at my high school graduation, by the way. That really, just to be clear, that was actually given to me like with my diploma.
One of my favorite stories is I went to a Catholic high school, and for context, it was a very small private school. There were probably about 400 students like in the school total. It was like about 100 per class. So everyone knew everyone. Even though my little teenage brain liked to think that there were cliques, there probably weren't. I mean, there probably were, but it was more like, I mean, I was friends with some popular kids, and it wasn't like a huge divide like you see in the movies or whatever.
Cliques don't have the same kind of social capital in a school of that size.
Yeah, because everyone knows each other.
And I went to a school of like 300 kids, not to one-up you, but it was smaller.
Well, I was just generalizing.
But I think it was kind of that same social atmosphere of like everybody knows everybody, so maybe we should all just like be a little chill.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, my graduating class was also 83, but we had 700 because we went 6 through 12.
Yes.
But yeah, so
you guys know, as people who went to smaller schools, that cliques, like in the movies, don't really thrive in that environment. Yeah. But there were definitely some kids that were more popular, and mostly because they were friendly and nice, and some kids that were not as popular because they were like cringy and weird. And I didn't think I was really part of any clique, but I overheard somebody talking about me once, and not in a like bad way. But it was like a guy who I would consider like a little more, I don't know what clique he would have been in. Just like kind of like smart but popular sort of thing. And he was like, oh yeah, Celeste. Because I think I don't know if somebody was asking where I was or whatever. But he was like, yeah, she sits over there with the theater nerds. And I was like, I'm a theater nerd. I've been labeled. I'm like, I guess that's my clique. And I looked around and I was like, yeah, all of the people that I'm sitting with have been in plays with me. That's so cute. Yeah. That makes sense. So that was my clique. But either way, referring to Macbeth as a Scottish play, also the Bard's play. One theory is that the play was cursed when Shakespeare used elements of real spells in the scenes that feature the witches. Some say that simply including the spells was enough to put a jinx on Macbeth. Others say that the witches became angry that the spells used were incomplete and cursed the play to exact their revenge.
Like actual practitioners of witchcraft in 1590, whatever? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there's no proof that there was actually magic used, but Dr. Anja? God, I'm so sorry that I don't know how to pronounce this. Kohan of the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust says it's possible that Shakespeare could have gathered ideas for those scenes from real encounters. Quote, he'd have come across people who dabbled in herbal treatments and medicines. He would have been inspired by something, unquote.
Cool.
So it's the theory that the incantations he used were closer to, like maybe real or inspired by real things. Mm-hmm. The idea may have been fueled by the fact that the witch's verse is written in tetrameter with 4 rhythmic feet to each line. As Shakespeare's verse usually uses pentameter, it's unusual and sounds a bit witchy. Some academics think that this indicates that the scenes were not written by Shakespeare, though no one has yet found evidence that their true authors were witches.
Oh, that's interesting, because I've heard the theory that William Shakespeare himself didn't write all of his stuff just because, like, it's so diverse and there's so much of it, and, you know, so much has been lost of time. But I love the idea that, like, witches might have written some of it.
Yeah. But, like, honestly, what
Or
else?
he just plagiarized witches.
Yeah, but honestly, the counterpoint to he didn't write it is, what else are you going to do in 1590 except dick around and try and come up with something?
Maybe William Shakespeare was the Aaron Hunter of his time.
I don't know that reference.
Oh, Warrior Cats! It's the women who wrote Warrior Cats.
I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you didn't know.
You don't know Warrior Cats?
Well, you didn't know A.A. Milne, so whatever.
Did he write Warrior Cats?
No, he wrote Winnie the fucking Pooh.
Well then. Things heating up in the Warrior Cats and Winnie the Pooh fandom.
Okay, so, in any case, portraying witchcraft on stage was a bold move in 1606. In a largely uneducated society, heavily influenced by the church, most people believed in magic. And so, therefore, this play became like, oh my goodness.
Well, also,
witchcraft.
like, if I recall correctly, actually, when you get into 1606, he might have already been the St. James Players at that point. But
it was the first performance was around 1606.
Okay, I can't remember when exactly they became the King James Performers, rather. But before they were sponsored by the literal king, they literally had to go across the Thames because things like bear fights and plays were illegal. So, like, if you're already...
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, hang on, I don't think those two are on exactly the same level of absurd that they're outlawed here.
God forbid we have a bear fight. Also, God forbid we have a play.
Because, well, it's the 1590s, and it's like... it's still a little bit Puritan energy, so how dare people have fun? So, but then that's that whole... The humans, not the bears. But they went literally just across the Thames, across from the city of London. Literally, it's like a great view of the city of London, because it's Puritan times and humans are not allowed to have fun in the city of London. So you go just across the river, literally across the bridge, and the globe is right there.
Yeah. Well, that's convenient.
Yeah.
They must have done that on purpose.
Yes, absolutely they did. If he had just become the king, or just gotten sponsored by King James after King Elizabeth, then they might have been like, here's this play, but then that would also be really awkward because, you know, King Duncan is trying to get killed.
Ooh.
But anyway.
Okay. I should study more about Elizabethan, like,
it's
era.
wild.
Okay, so these are just some things that have happened that make people think, okay, maybe this play is cursed.
Okay.
Legend has it the play's first performance around 1606 was riddled with disaster. The actor playing Lady Macbeth died suddenly, so Shakespeare himself had to take on the part. Other rumored mishaps included real daggers being used in place of stage props for the murder of King Duncan, resulting in the actor's death.
Can you imagine if he'd already been sponsored by King James at that point, and then they actually kill the guy playing the king?
So that one, I don't know how accurate that is. I think it is that the person who was playing Lady Macbeth did die, but I don't know if the other one was just a rumor or if it was real. Yeah. But these are things that have happened since in the many years since this play was written. Critic Percy Hammond gave a bad review of Orson Welles' Voodoo Macbeth and died within a couple weeks.
Voodoo Macbeth?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I know. I don't know what it is. I mean, it's Orson Welles, so it must be a play or a book. I'm going to look it up.
For those of y'all who recognize the name but don't know where, Orson Welles wrote the radio play for War of the Worlds.
The Voodoo Macbeth is a common nickname for the Federal Theater Project's 1936 New York production of Macbeth. So it was just the production that Orson Welles put together.
Okay. I mean, people do different lenses of Shakespeare all the time. I mean...
It was supposed to be Haitian themed.
Okay.
Which I guess explains, where the
nickname
Voodoo title comes from.
Yeah. I mean, I saw one where it's all set in the Middle East, and the witches, aka the agents of chaos, are all white people. So...
I like different versions of Shakespeare plays. Yeah. Like the Leonardo DiCaprio version of Romeo and Juliet. Like where they're using guns instead of swords.
Yeah.
But it's just funny. It's just fun. The critic gave a bad review of this Macbeth and then died in a couple weeks. Laurence Olivier was rehearsing. This was very famous when a 25-pound stage weight crashed down, missing him by inches.
What?
Oh, that's so scary.
Yeah. John Juligood's production suffered 3 deaths in the cast and the suicide of the costume and set designer.
Whoa.
Harold Norman was stabbed in the sword fight that ends the play and died as a result of his wounds.
Huh.
These are all over the years, the centuries.
Yeah.
Lady Macbeth at Stratford played the sleepwalking scene with her eyes closed and walked right off the stage, falling 15 feet.
15 feet?
What kind of stage were they using?
Where is it? You know, I'm not going to worry about it. Fine, it was 15 feet tall.
Okay. I guess they're doing a new kind of stage or something, I guess. All right.
Well, I mean, at 15 feet, like, if it's a huge stage and you want a bunch of people to see it.
Well,
that's 8 feet.
Yeah. Alex is pointing at my door. Yeah.
Just about every average doorway in the United States is 8 feet tall.
So I wonder at that point.
But what if you have something under the stage, like
like if it's a theater set or a theater that has a built-in orchestra pit, alternately or potentially tangentially, they had built a vertical set piece, and she's supposed to like be looking down and instead just like falls down the set piece and into the pit or something. I could see that being 15 feet. Don't do it with your eyes closed, man.
Yeah. Charlton Heston suffered severe burns in his groin and leg area from tights that were accidentally soaked in kerosene.
Oh my god. Why are they doing that in kerosene? And not like black dye like a normal person?
It says accidentally soaked.
Okay. That makes it slightly better, but only slightly.
In St. Paul, Minnesota, the person who's playing Macbeth dropped dead of heart failure during the first scene of Act 3. And the 1988 Broadway production went through 3 directors, 5 Macduffs, 6 cast changes, 6 stage managers, 2 set designers, 2 lighting designers, 26 bouts of flu, torn ligaments, and groin injuries.
That's crazy.
There's an odd number of groin injuries here.
Well, maybe
for a non
did they have like cod pieces and stuff back then?
I mean, maybe, but
because
like
they did in Elizabethan. The whole thing about Paris in like Romeo and Juliet, isn't it like the cod piece or whatever to show how like fancy he was? I don't remember.
Even know.
I read that play when I was like 14.
Yeah.
Macbeth is also seen as unlucky by theater companies, as it usually meant that the theater was in financial trouble. Macbeth was and still is a popular play that was guaranteed an income. So if it was suddenly announced, it could mean that the theater is struggling.
Which makes me a little bit worried for Shakespeare Theatre Company because they have one on with Christopher Eccleston.
Wait,
yes.
That's so fun.
Yeah. And if it's the production, I'm thinking of maybe not because it was 5 years ago, but he was also doing it in.
I got excited.
No. Let me finish. 5 years ago, I went to London and I wanted to see Eccleston in Macbeth at the Globe, but didn't get tickets in time, and that was in 2019. So I'm wondering if they're bringing it over or something. But that was 5 years. I was going 5 years ago, and that's a long lead time. But anyway.
Oh, that would be so great.
Yeah. I know.
I do want to get tickets at some point this time.
Watch that. Yeah. The hell out of that. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be too worried about that because it's like if you obviously your main thing is Shakespeare plays, then it's not a huge deal. But if it's like a random theater that just we're gonna do Macbeth, then that's a little more like that's gonna draw people in. Equally, the high production costs to stage the play could also bankrupt a theater.
Oh, true.
What's so high about the production cost of it? Like,
probably because they have to go through
however many
3 directors, 5 big butts. So just 6 stage managers, 2 set designers, 2 lighting designers, 26 bouts of flu, torn ligaments, and groin injuries.
Yeah, that'll do it too.
But like, in all sincerity, those sets, especially later in Shakespeare's career, like once you're getting into like The Tempest and like actually being sponsored by the king, they actually have the budget not to like put a wig on a teenage boy, and so they actually can hire female performers and they can actually do like actual stage and set pieces rather than just saying like, do you vaguely see the trees roughly in that direction? They actually like put trees in the background now.
If you read Shakespeare's plays, there's a lot of different sets just in general, like the whole fighting scene at the end with the forest walking stuff that could take a whole amount of effort because you have to have everyone carrying like a tree, which is my favorite thing is that Tolkien hated the plot twists that were in Macbeth.
I didn't know that.
Spoiler alert for Macbeth.
I don't know if the statute of limitations lasts more than 400 years.
Yeah, I think
But I guess if you want to spoiler alert, here's your
the
spoiler
two
music.
plot twists were that like Macbeth will fall when the forest of whatever fights or like walks or something, and the way that Shakespeare said it was all of the soldiers, they took like bark and like bushes and stuff as tree branches as disguises, and like it seemed like the forest was walking to go fight. And Tolkien was like, "That's stupid.
That really
I'm gonna
checks out why he hates
I'm gonna make trees actually fight."
And then turn it into a metaphor for American isolationism.
Exactly.
But,
and then the second plot
C-section
twist.
The one.
Oh
this
my
is the one I
God.
thought you were going to talk about, but
Well, I was saving it because it's my favorite.
Yeah.
Because it had it has my favorite character in Lord of the Rings, or second favorite character, because Samwise will always have my heart.
Yeah.
So the second plot twist was that Macbeth would be killed by no man of woman born.
Ooh.
And so he was like confident and cocky because he's like, I'm not going to get killed by anyone. But it was Macduff, right? He was a C-section baby.
C-section,
So
yay!
he wasn't of woman born, technically, because he didn't come out of his mother's vagina. Once again, Tolkien was like, that's stupid. And then he made Éowyn.
Yeah.
And then he said, you know what? We're going to have a woman come and kill fucking the
And
evil...
then the Witch King is all like, no
exactly.
man shall defeat me. And then you
Exactly.
get the helmet and the hair. And she's like,
I am no man. And she took and puts the freaking sword in the Witch King's face.
I always call it a face hole because you don't actually know how far back it is. But
Yeah.
anyway.
But either way,
Yes, yeah.
so I also think that's a better plot twist. So I'm on
Yeah, it
Tolkien's
is
side
really
here.
Yeah, but the C-section, that one's kind of a...
That is a little
that one's
tough.
still- I don't know, I kind of like it, though.
Well, you
Yeah.
like it because you were a C-section
know,
baby.
like
So you're like,
representation,
I would kill Macbeth.
C-section. Yeah.
So, how can you avoid catastrophe if you utter the play that shall not be named? Exit the
Run outside the theater 3 times in under a minute.
Well, yeah, or according to this one, you can exit the theater, spin around 3 times, spit,
Ew.
curse, and then knock on the theater door to be allowed back in.
Yeah,
It
I
sounds
see
a lot
why-
easier than doing 3 laps in a minute or 2.
But I also see why none of our teachers told us to do that one.
Go spit and curse.
Yeah, are you kidding me? If you were allowed, listen, if like the penalty for it was like we had to run around the theater as fast as we could, like we didn't want to do that necessarily. But if it was like go outside, like spin, spit somewhere, and curse, maybe that wouldn't have been my cup of tea. But like I can think of a lot of like kids at that age who'd be like, oh, that's perfect. Yep.
So, those are my 4 superstitions.
Woo! All right.
Thank you for joining. I honestly, this is a never-ending well
Yeah.
of resource because I haven't even done the number 13 or
Triskaidekaphobia.
yes, I kind of want to dedicate like a whole episode to number 13 and
yeah.
Friday the 13th
Yeah.
because I feel like there's probably a wealth of information there.
Yeah. Yeah, I always thought triskaidekaphobia was like such a hard word to say, and then I took Greek, and it literally means 3 and 10 fear.
Oh.
So,
Well, there you go.
yeah. Anyway,
But yes, and no, there's definitely more, and I'm always adding more. Like today, I just added wishing upon a star. Why is that a thing?
yeah.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
All right.
So, thank you for joining, and thank you, Alex, for joining
Thank
us
you
as
for
well.
having me.
Yeah, by the time this comes out, you'll have heard Alex's episode already. So go listen to that one if you haven't already. And
If you, well, Alex, do you have anything you want to shout out?
Anything I want to shout out? Not in particular. I'm a great appreciator of snakes, and we talked about snakes earlier, so maybe I'm just shouting out snakes, all of
Yeah.
them.
great for the ecosystem. And with all that said, follow us on Instagram at Dreary Midnight Pod. If you want to support us with money, that is the best way to do to help keep the show going in perpetuity. Helps us afford the music. Patreon.com/Dreary Midnights. And if you don't want to support us with money, rate, review, anywhere you can leave words. It really helps with the algorithm.
Yes.
Literally just leave your sparkling water review or something if you don't want to say anything
Today
else.
we're drinking Waterloo.
Which I realized as you're saying now is kind of a pun. because it's water. Anyway, and with all that said, spin 3 times, spit, swear, and knock on the door.
Don't say the name Macbeth.
Yeah. It's the last.
In the theater.
All right.
Okay.
And safe travels home on this dreary midnights. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.